This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at BackupBradleyAbove at the top of the screen and everything that we're talking about here today. Let's go ahead and get right into this because what we're going to talk about today is the Digital Dollar Project with Chris Giancarlo, the former CFTC chairman, and how that is relevant to what is going on today currently in the crypto digital dollar stablecoin race CBDC talk that is happening and pilot programs that are taking place. And we're also going to cover the BIS really quickly before we do that, and what I believe really reveals a soft indirect connection here that all of this is absolutely coordinated back end, because I believe these central banks are not siloed islands, and the printed money of the world is not something that stands alone. What happens with $1 is clearly affected by another. We know that, and we're going to get all of that wrapped out today. But in the process, we're going to look at the idea of the DTCC getting a pilot program with a digital dollar settling in the neighborhood of $4 trillion daily. So let's go ahead and get this started. I think you're going to like this one today a lot. So here we start as a reminder with the BIS Innovation Hub to expand to new locations in Europe and North America. And then it reminds us here, we covered this back this summer when it came out, but I'm just setting the tone and narrative where we're going today. And it says over the next 2 years, the BIS will open centers in collaboration with likes of Bank of Canada, Bank of England, European Central Bank, the Nordic central banks, and then it goes on to list them. And then it talks about also the Federal Reserve System out of New York as well, for a strategic partnership in pursuing and creating a global force for fintech innovation. Now that's the tone from the BIS, the central bank of central banks. And we here have a short little clip here from Benoit Coyer, which we covered the other day. Let's set the tone with this. Thanks to Kingland for this little cut. It's perfectly cut. Let's just listen to what he says here.
Of questions which are specific to different jurisdictions. There are even political dimensions to deciding on a CBDC. So feasibility is for each and every of these central banks to decide. What we do in this report is to lay out the foundations. And for this, we need principles. And we've identified 3 key principles that should lay the foundations for any work on CBDC. And these principles are, first, a do no harm principle. That is, CBDC should not hamper central banks in delivering on their mandates. And that means delivering monetary stability and financial stability. The second principle is about having an ecosystem where CBDC will coexist with commercial bank money and with banknotes. And we want that ecosystem to be diverse.
Listen carefully.
And the third principle is about encouraging innovation and efficiency, not only in money, but in the financial system at large. And for that, we need the private sector to be actively involved.
And for that, we need the private sector to be actively involved. There you have it. Now, this has been a conversation that I've been talking about of late, because the reality is that I don't think this gets done with the expediency and the order of magnitude that is really needed to be brought to this situation unless you involve the private sector. The public sector, the government sector, the banking sector are not innovators, and it's not a crack on them. It's just everybody does what they do well. Innovation's not what they do well. I think they recognize that, and that's why they put the Innovation Hub together. I think we're going to see even more evidence of that going forward. This was put out today from Chris Giancarlo. Shout out to Chris Giancarlo and everybody at the Digital Dollar Project and all their work that they're doing. Says they have published 9 pilot scenarios to test elements of the U.S. CBDC. Take a look, and we will. And thank you so much. So look, going back to the front of this, because I'm going to jump past a lot of it, but you should look at all of it. It is on the Twitter. on my account. So check it out. So it talks about here the Digital Dollar Project exploring United States Central Bank digital currency, proposed pilot programs. It gives a list of framework that they're checking it against here. I think you guys know the obvious of these things. What I am going to do is move through some of these really quick as an outline. And underbanked consumers, goes through the rural, urban, and benefits. Bank consumers, national usage, small, medium, multinational business users, financial market infrastructure players. So you can see how it breaks down the ability to see all the different aspects of who and what gets touched in this space. Now, it does go to speak to small business, cross-border transactions and efficiencies. I think we're all well-versed in that particular area. What I want to focus on here is the one down here at the bottom where it's talking about international payments, banks paying banks, streamlining the correspondent banking network, streamlining trade corridors, domestic payments and transfers, non-FedWire participant access to central bank money for settlement, and domestic atomic settlement, DTCC settlement of tokenized cash and tokenized securities on ledger. On ledger. Okay, everybody with us? So, as we move through, let me go through, because these are the individual proposals that they make here, right? One for rural, urban, benefit distribution. I'm going to skip past those because I want to focus on one in particular: bank consumers, business users, small, medium, multinational. It gives each one of these gives a future solution about how to incorporate the CBDC and all the ways to understand how it can benefit the system. So, okay. Moving on through here, you see the multinational business platform. That's cross-border stuff right there. Financial market infrastructure players. It goes through this, the current state of cross-border transactions, typically conducted by financial institutions on behalf of requested parties. It gives you the all lay down, the AML, KYC, domestic payment transfers, non-FedWire. Then it does the domestic atomic settlement. Let's get down here for a second here. Because what it says in here is a depository trust clearing corporation is American post-trade financial services company providing initial onboarding through trading, clearance, settlement, asset servicing, data management, and trade reporting, bringing increased security and soundness to financial markets. It exchanges securities on behalf of buyers and sellers and functions as a central securities depository by providing central custody of securities. In 2019, the DTCC had the world's largest depository hold of 1.35 million active U.S. issues worth $48.3 trillion. Conducted 102.1 million broker-to-broker transactions cleared per day worth $965.5 billion and processed $4 trillion per day in U.S. government and mortgage-backed securities. Not exactly a corner store. Okay, so you see the enormity of what they're doing. You see the enormity of the things that they are settling. It's the entire derivatives market, essentially back end. And what we do is we get down here to the future state, and I want to talk about that and then the pilot proposal. So let's look at the future state first. The DTCC proposed in its recent Project Ion that optimizations could arise through the settlement of tokenized cash and tokenized securities on ledger. Interestingly enough, we've heard from the OCC about private stable coins and the issuers and being able to hold the reserves in a federally chartered bank, being able to custody digital assets in federally chartered banks, and the SEC giving us the no action letter for security tokens, tokenized securities on ledger, and that a digital accelerated settlement service would support both netted and bilateral settlement and incorporate a new integrated DTC NSCC settlement model, as well as a pre-funding option for both netted and bilateral settlements. Such optimizations unlock new market opportunities such as variable settlement time and associated value construct. It is hypothesized that a CBDC would enable atomic settlement of tokenized cash and tokenized securities on ledger. as well as dynamic settlement windows without the need for additional cash settlement at the Federal Reserve through nominated banks. This is interesting. These new capabilities would deliver a myriad of benefits, including reduction in cost, increased capital efficiency, reduction in trapped liquidity, among other broad-based efficiency, transparency, and workflow benefits. I'm reminded with the efficiency of the markets being more efficient with this new technology brought in, as Jay Clayton said just last week in the Digital Chamber of Commerce conference. Looking here at the pilot proposal for the DTCC, given the DTCC's deep expertise and investment they have made into blockchain-related pilots and research. Our recommendation would be for the appropriate regulatory and statutory bodies to give the DTCC necessary tools to develop and run a pilot, given the right regulatory construct, whether a no action letter, hello, or a regulatory sandbox, OCC, hello. The DTCC could develop a pilot program that would test the hypothesis around atomic settlement of tokenized cash, tokenized securities using CBDC. DTCC has already indicated a desire to proceed with a pre-funded model, which, although the details are unknown, could use a form of tokenized commercial bank money or other similar liability. However, if DTCC's implementation of pre-funded tokenized cash occurred in partnership with the government using a true CBDC, we believe the pilot could truly kick off a wave. Listen to this. We believe that the pilot could truly kick off a wave of innovation and modernization of the U.S. financial infrastructure not seen since the advent of the internet. Come on in. You know, when I look at these things, and it says here that they have been, the DTCC's expertise and investment they have made into blockchain-related pilots and research, it goes back to what we've covered here a while ago with the DTCC when they talked about their Project Ion and Project Whitney. Let's just cover this really quickly for a second. So this really is a reminder that the DTC's proposals are contained in 2 case studies that advance the organization's efforts to evaluate new ways to enhance post-trade processes through the digitization of assets. The case studies Project Ion and Project Whitney are the latest efforts by the DTCC to examine the potential use of DLT, asset digitization, and other emerging technologies. Project Ion seeks to build on DTCC's successful efforts, listen to this, over the past several years to further optimize settlement process in the public markets, while Project Whitney considers opportunities to provide increased levels of digitization through the private market asset lifecycle. Now, look, when we go through here, you see Project Ion. They gave you their overview. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. You can breathe a sigh of relief here. But what I am going to say is I'm going to take you right down here is that, you know, these 2 Project Ion, Project Whitney have been going for years. And this is a reminder here that we're talking about a market of DTC settling in the neighborhood of $2.15 quadrillion. And now you have Chris Giancarlo asking for a pilot program for the DTCC to test the CBDC with the Ion and Whitney that they've developed for years, which is on distributed ledger technology, which I would imagine, if I'm obviously speculating, but I don't believe I'm wrong too, I believe will be back-end XRP settlement to those transactions. Now, coming back to this document here from the Digital Dollar, what I found interesting about this is that it shows here central bank digital currency related search. And it goes all back to the public-private innovation and collaboration on pilots, Banque de France, Sweden's Riksbank, Bank of England, World Economic Forum, Bank of International Settlements, European Central Bank, International Monetary Fund, all your normal players. But what I couldn't really stop thinking about really was the whole idea of that innovation hub, and that most of these players are in this innovation hub. And it's Riksbank, and I mean, they're all there. It's really there. So to me, the digital dollar project, the BIS, all of this stuff is happening back end. They are all working, I believe, to get the best solution and to understand the information, the simulations and the models that have taken place before these pilots that are being asked to do now, which I believe become just live examples of what they've been working on in models and simulations previously for years before. So that to me is pretty damn interesting. Now let's see here. Here is something else that's interesting too, because in light of knowing that we need some regulatory clarity, in light of understanding that Brad Garlinghouse, Chris Larson are making a real call to action on social media, that we need to get the DCEA done, I would like to remind everybody that there is a larger narrative too. All of this is global. All of this is a international mission between the IMF and the World Economic Forum and the BIS and all the central banks and all the oversight committees and bodies around the world. It reminded of the G20, a new framework for inclusive growth. They have a global digital summit series, October 21st, 22nd, and then again on the 28th and 29th. I do want to remind everybody that because we have seen a trend on this channel, when we cover motion that happens, it normally comes out first, like the FATF and the G20, the regulatory body FATF connected to that. We saw the AML KYC roll out through the FATF on that international recommendation. And then that was quickly adopted by the U.S. here at home. So I think this is something to really pay attention to from the G20 and all of the respective international bodies, whether it be the World Economic Forum or the Financial Stability Board, another regulatory agency connected to the G20, or the G7 ministers. I think these are really things to pay attention to as we watch these CBDCs be developed and prepare for pilot programs, which look to the size of the DTCC and being able to pilot trillions of dollars worth a day of settlement to derivatives market. It's pretty remarkable. This here is the digital economy they show on Thursday, October 22nd, 2020, 2:30 to 5:30 p.m. And we will have to keep an eye on that to see if it yields any information. And, a lot of these things, they may have great information in them, but we may not find out the day of, right? It may not be publicly put out or what have you, and it may not yield anything. But these are things I believe we need to watch, because I don't believe we're far from seeing something domestically here in the U.S., but we may get something on an international level first before seeing something domestically become really, really solidified here at home. So not for sure, but those are the things I see to work on or to work towards finding out more about. And when it comes to the whole idea of the digital dollar, this is a really, really well written PDF on how to get these pilots in place for all the different areas of where payments can streamline for everything around the world, whether it's domestic transfers or whether it's derivatives back in, or whether we're talking just in general cross-border payments alike. That's going to do it for me, guys. Hit the like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. Don't forget, when you're online, don't click on any link because you just don't know what you're clicking on all the time. But if you need something out here, whether it be a ledger or a crypto IRA or whatever it is, or you're just looking for a .crypto name from Unstoppable Domains, make sure you check the links in the description box in the comment section, because they're always going to be trusted links for whatever you may want or need. All right, that's going to do it for me. Hit the like and subscribe, leave a comment below, and share with somebody you know. I'll catch all of you on the next one.